as you can see in this picture here, this is my CPU water cooler. When I first got it, I had one fan. Then I thought, well, why don't I have a push-pull configuration? As you can see here, I've changed both fans to keep the CFM identical, and it also dropped the temperature by about 6 or 7 degrees. Both fans are run off the same header in parallel, so they run at the same speed and controlled by the same header. Anyway, when I realised that the CPU was cooling with a push-pull configuration more efficiently, I started looking at graphics cards. As you can see here, I got a 5970 and I put the aftermarket cooler from Accelero Extreme. Didn't like this cooler because it kept the hot air inside the case. It also meant to fit it properly I had to slightly bend the PCB, which is no good, so I sent it back. So I started looking at push-pull configurations for graphics cards, like I said. I then got an Asus GTX 590. This consists of two GTX 580s mounted either end of the card. The centre cooler fan blows cold air half out the back of the case and half into the case. The air that blows into the case was causing me some problems. There was pockets of air reaching 50 degrees centigrade. This is when I decided to look at the push-pull configuration I'd applied with my CPU and apply it to the GPU cards. I decided the best way would be to remove that hot air altogether by means of a duct. So I took some measurements and made a duct out of balsa wood. I fitted a Minikaze fan which runs at 4,500 RPM and removes about 28 CFM of hot air from the case. It is removed directly via this hole I cut in the case. This solved the problem of the hot air pockets, for the time being at least, until I decided to get a second GTX 590. The duct I made would no longer fit because it was fully enclosed at the bottom. I now had two GTX 590 graphics cards blowing hot air into my computer. As you can imagine, the temperatures skyrocketed. This time they were nearer 60 degrees. I knew the push-pull configuration was the way to go, so I made a bigger duct with an open bottom. I fitted the same Minikaze fan this time as it had proven itself the last time. This is the duct in place. Case temperatures then went from around 60 degrees back down to ambient temperature. This time, however, the lack of airflow at the top card made that one slightly warmer, around 10 degrees warmer than the bottom card. So this was the next problem I was going to solve. I knew from experience now that the pull configuration was about as good as it was going to get, so I decided to try and assist the stock fan, make that a bit more efficient. Now, because the narrow gap between the graphics cards was so small, the airflow was restricted, so I was going to help the fan by blowing air onto that. Rather than one fan and 90% of the air missing it, I decided 3 Minikazes in a row would do the job. So here is what I came up with. I also thought it would be a good idea to do a pull configuration for the graphics card exhausting out the back of the computer. This will assist the stock fan. So I did. I made a box, stuck an 80mm fan on it with a nice high CFM, silent fan, and that reduced the card temperature quite significantly as well. Everything was running really well until my motherboard failed. It was going to be away for about 3 weeks. Fortunately, my motherboard is still under warranty from Asus, as it's less than 3 years old. When it was away, I started thinking about water cooling and how efficient the Coolit ALC is. I bought 2 water blocks for my GPUs. I bought an EK version and an AlphaCool version. I didn't like the EK version much, so I opted to go purely with the AlphaCool. So I got a second one of those and sent the EK one back. By this point, I had ordered and received most of the parts necessary to have a full water-cooled system. I then received my replacement motherboard, which I fitted and installed all the water-cooled parts at the same time. The only thing missing was the pump, which was coming from China. The pump arrived nearly a week later, which I fitted and tested the system then for 24 hours before actually applying power to the motherboard. Again, everything is now going great. That is until the summer arrived and record-breaking temperatures as well. The radiator is now reaching temperatures of 50 degrees. So, with the space at the back, I added another 120mm radiator and fan. This is where I'm up to just now. It's going well. I have some thoughts for the future, including adding a car radiator outside, and removing the radiators in the computer, running copper pipes under the back garden, using them as a cooler instead. Also adding additional water loops and heat exchangers, but we'll see how it goes. Cheers.